Tom Pellereau, perhaps more commonly known as Inventor Tom, from the 2011 series of the BBC's The Apprentice. The man who was on the losing side 8 times but still came out on top is still making his mark on the business world.
It's been a phenomenon. We've sold 2 million plus units now globally, I think.
It's been 12 years since he received the prize of every keen entrepreneur's dreams, a £250 million investment in his business, and the chance to work alongside Lord Alan Sugar.
He is still a 50% shareholder. He was hugely helpful in helping to make sure I didn't make too many mistakes.
And it's an opportunity he's not squandered. Since becoming the winning candidate, Tom's business Stylideas, which develops innovative beauty tools, has made millions in revenue. You've probably seen, heard of, or used his products before. Tom's best known for developing the first ever curved nail file, as well as the Style Pro makeup brush cleaner, which launched in 2016. So, as this year's series of The Apprentice lights up our screens, Tom spoke with the Evening Standard's business editor, Jonathan Prynne.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for sparing us the time today. Very good to have you on the podcast. Can I just start? Obviously, to most of the people listening today, you're obviously best known for that Apprentice series back in 2011, I think it was, 2012 maybe?
2011, yes.
2011. But, I mean, obviously there was a journey before you even got to that sort of first session in the boardroom. I mean, rewinding back from there, what was the sort of first inspiration you had in childhood or adolescence or whenever when you felt that a sort of entrepreneurial career was something you wanted to pursue as a living, as an ambition?
Yeah, very good question. So I don't know when, but I think I was very young. I had this dream of having a product on the market in a shop. I think I remember being in a shop and going, "Oh, that's amazing! That's on the someone was involved in that. Someone designed that. Someone invented that. Someone brought it to market." And at school, I really struggled. I was very dyslexic, although fortunately I was recognised for that. And so my earlier school, lots of English, lots of French exam. I've never passed a French exam in my life, but luckily I was pretty strong at maths and design and physics. So I sort of really had this dream that I could create something and bring it to market.
And I think you described yourself, or you were described on your behalf maybe, as an inventor when you went on the show. I mean, an inventor is one thing, a successful entrepreneur is another. Tell us about some of the inventions that you were working on in the run-up to that series, The Apprentice.
So I managed to do pretty well at A-level, got to university, did mechanical engineering at Bath, really enjoyed that, then left Bath and did a number of sort of consulting jobs, helping to come up with ideas for companies. But I remember having this meeting with someone who's like, Tom, it's all very well. I like your method. I like your style. Your presentation is good. But, what have you done? What have you brought to market? If I had James Dyson in this room pitching to me, I've seen what he's done, so I'd listen. Go off and invent something, bring something to market yourself. So I went away from that going, he's absolutely right. What could I do? And so I studied a number of different areas, and I sort of happened upon nail care. Because I looked around and sort of thought, in the boots, all these other parts of beauty have expanded hugely and developed loads, but the nail file is just the nail file. So I came up with 5-6 different ideas. I prototyped them. I made some of them in my oven, in my flat, and I had this idea of making a file curved because your nail is naturally curved. And making the prototype, and then I managed to get a grant to get some research done. And kind of my big break really was Paul Murray, who had a distribution company for the pharmacies. He agreed to buy 50,000 of this curved nail file from me originally. So that kind of, I suppose that curve file was one of my first. I did a number of little small ones, but certainly that was the beginning. Because you don't have much money, or I would have loved to have done cars or golf clubs or something like that. But that's where I started.
That was before The Apprentice, was it? Because you went to The Apprentice with the idea for the chair, I think, as I recall.
I did. So I think possibly the story that won me The Apprentice was having sold these nail files to Paul Murray. I then helped him to then sell them through. And he at the time wasn't really working with Boots. So I came up with this idea of creating a beautiful presentation pack. And I arrived at Boots without an appointment and said that I had a special delivery for the buyer. And she was kind of very surprised by this because I was all dressed up and I didn't have an appointment. And she kind of told me the lay of the land in the fact that, really I needed to be a bigger brand. And it was then that I kind of recognized that, you need a lot of money to be inventing products and bringing things to market. And so, I was working through different things. And then not too long after that, really, I was really struggling with this, because you do need time and scope and scale to bring things to market. And I was supposed to be applying for what my grandfather would have described as a proper job. And I heard the BBC advert for The Apprentice, because my Apprentice was the first one where it was investment rather than a job. And I was like, I remember having an Amstrad 1512. I remember Lord Sugar bringing things to market. Imagine if I could work with him. So let's just have one more roll of the dice. And that's kind of why I applied.
Yeah, I think you said before that it was almost your last chance saloon. Well, I mean, just out of interest, what was the sort of the proper job, as you call it, that you were applying for if things hadn't worked out? What course would Tom Pellereau have taken if it hadn't worked out?
I know, for the 10 years in between The Apprentice and my university, I'd had 12 different jobs at various sort of consulting firms where I would help. As an engineer, you can do maths, you can do spreadsheets, you can do project management. But in answer to your proper job question, I was probably going to apply to Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, fantastic, highly respected brands that make products. And I think I did have the Unilever application on my desk when I heard this radio advert.
Well, there you go, sliding doors moment. And as you say, it was the first series when the prize was an investment rather than a job. Do you think you would have gone for it if it been the old format of a job working for Lord Sugar, or was that not at all what you wanted?
I might have gone for it, but I don't think I would have done very well. I think as an employee, I wouldn't have been a great match for him. But as an inventor, someone who had managed to bring a product to market, I think he personally really engaged with that concept.
And you famously lost 8, was it 8?
I was wondering if you might bring this up. Yes, yeah.
I was absolutely addicted to The Apprentice at that stage. Those early series, I just absolutely loved and got very invested. And I do remember him sort of rolling his eyes because I think you set a record for a finalist of being on the losing side 8 times. I mean, what? He's obviously saw something beyond that. So, I mean, what did that teach you? I mean, obviously there's a lesson of resilience there, I guess, and not giving up and ploughing on.
Yeah, that was, in terms of what it taught me, I wasn't strong enough in voicing my kind of view. There were a number of times where I could see the writing on the wall pretty early on in some instances. And either I didn't speak up, which I think is probably quite a classic kind of engineer type situation, or that I didn't properly communicate why I thought that. So I came out of the process, really quite empowered, going, Tom, you do kind of seems like you can see things, but you need to get better at speaking up, communicating why, and getting people to come to you. Fundamentally, I don't think I was pushy enough for the process in some respects.
And the chair that sort of won it for you, I guess, did that ever get made, or did you pivot straight into the nail care products that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so I went to him with very much a concept of this exercise chair, which I think is really a good idea still, but he kind of twisted that towards it. Tom, you're an inventor, you create products, let's create an innovation business, and let's look again at those that first nail file you did. He's incredibly astute. He recognized, fortunately, despite my losses, that I had brought something to market before, that there was some IP that I owned, which we then folded into the business. And then we set up meetings with many other different retailers, and in the end did an exclusive with Sainsbury's, launching 3 different versions of the nail file, about 6 months after the show. And that was amazing. Suddenly, because my final, I think, still holds the record for 10.4 million viewers for an Apprentice. So, people got really involved in that final. And had it been the job, I think Helen would have easily won. She was much better as me as a job. Yeah.
She was a very credible candidate, wasn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
Do you keep in touch with your fellow contestants from that time?
Yeah, we did for a while, but we were all of that kind of age where most of us got married and had children within a year or two, and suddenly you become very unavailable to see your best friends, let alone people. But I certainly do keep in touch with the other winners. So Mark, Ricky, Leah, myself. We have a WhatsApp group with the winners on. Congratulate the latest person to join us. But yeah, I don't keep in touch that much with previous.
Yeah, it's a very exclusive club. And obviously you've kept in touch with Lord Sugar. I think he's still a shareholder or a director in the business.
He is still a 50% shareholder. So, the two questions I most get asked by people is Lord Sugar still involved? And yes, he still owns 50%. And secondly is, do you really only get 20 minutes to get ready in the morning? To which the answer is yes and no, in the fact that you have to be ready and downstairs in 20 minutes, because then it takes half an hour to mic you all up, half an hour to get you in the car, half an hour to the way that filming happens. But yes, he is still very much involved, and he's very beneficial to me.
Particularly in those early days when you were just setting out, what did he bring to the party? What was he very hands-on, or and presumably he was able to open some doors for you and give you some advice as well, clearly.
Yeah, so at the beginning, we signed this contract. I was then employed by the new company. I took offices in his office. So actually, my desk was directly almost outside his office. And it was absolutely terrifying because the person opposite me had worked for Lord Sugar for 30 odd years. And at the beginning, it was just me. And I was doing the designing, doing the packaging, doing the sourcing, doing the selling. And we gradually grew with that. The big break really came 3 or 4 years later when I found out about this problem to clean and dry makeup brushes. Talking at an event, got some feedback from someone, and I invented this idea, which no one had done before, to spin the makeup brush on its axis in a bowl that opens the bristles up, the cleanser can get right in, and then as you lift it, it then spins it dry. It's been a phenomenon. We've sold 2 million plus units now globally, I think. And he was hugely helpful in helping to make sure I didn't make too many mistakes on that. But that's meant that we can now be a business of 10, 15 people. We're in all the major retailers in the UK. We're expanding very nicely in Europe. It's definitely not plain sailing, and my role is very, there's still a lot to do, but he's been very helpful.
Let's have a short break now. Hit follow to make sure you don't miss any episodes of How to Be a CEO.
And you've grown enormously, as you say. How have you found, it's one thing to be an entrepreneur and an inventor working sort of on your own. How have you found the management side of it and the personnel side of it and the sort of the leadership side of it with a business of 10 to 15 staff?
Yes, I'm learning, and I still have a lot to learn. And I'm starting to recognise my own strengths and my own weaknesses, because it's incredibly difficult. And, to be frank, we've had some tricky years. The makeup brush cleaner was amazing, but then the next sort of product idea was all about teeth whitening and dental. And I don't think we realized just how competitive the marketplace would be in that. And also we were launching exclusively with dental practices just as COVID hit. So they all got closed down. And that was really tricky. And it took us a bit of time to kind of recover from that. But we now, as a business, understand our niche, which is all about bringing the latest electrical beauty products to market at the best possible prices. And I know my niche, what I need to do: find new products, find new problems, bring those to market so that we can launch 7 to 10 new products every year.
And you talked about those tough times. How did you negotiate the pandemic, and did you have to put people on furlough and all those other emergency measures that people were forced into during an extraordinary time.
Yes, so we had just done an enormous deal with Costco in America. And the terms of that agreement meant that actually if Costco didn't open their doors, we could have been left with something like $500,000 worth of stock that they would then return to us, which could have been, and I had a meeting with Lord Sugar, Zoom on obviously, and he said, this could be it. Right. And so those first few weeks, especially those first 7 weeks, 23rd of March when Boris closed us down, were really terrifying. And we did have to let one person go. We managed to keep everyone else together. We didn't put anyone on furlough. We all worked from home. And actually, it became some of our busiest time because people were stuck at home. They couldn't go to bars, restaurants, theatres. So instead they were buying beauty products. We launched our beauty fridge on that very night, 23rd of March. And all of us were like, well, that was a waste of time. Who's going to buy a £50 beauty fridge the night we've all been locked down and we're all terrified for our jobs? And we sold 20 that night and it just carried on going and we really couldn't believe it. So actually we were working very, very hard. We were really, really fortunate.
But there were moments where you thought, actually, do you know what? I'm not sure we're going to come through this.
Yeah, at the beginning, I was really worried. What was going to happen. And my father was in commercial property in the 90s, and I remember his business of 30 or 40 people basically going down to him, and us sort of having to move out of the house and in with my grandparents. And I sort of had, crikey, is this my moment? But we were very lucky. But yeah, it was some very scary times.
Has an apprentice winner in the business partner format actually, has their business failed? I'm trying to think of any that have, but maybe not. I mean, that wouldn't be a good precedent to set, I guess, if it had happened.
Yes, certainly. He's very keen to ensure that I do well and to help in that respect. He has party company with some of the apprentice winners, let them continue, and I'm not sure all of them have survived. I'm sure they have survived, but in different guises. But I cannot stress how beneficial the apprentice has been for me. I can't speak for everyone, but I'm watching this season. My kids really love it, and I'm seeing some really good candidates in there. And I hope that it can continue for another few years because I think it's such an amazing prize to win. I can't stress that enough.
I think another challenge you've talked about in your post-apprentice career is the copycat products that you've seen sort of swarm onto the market after you've developed your own product. How have you coped with that, and how do you go about protecting your IP in that situation?
It's a very good point. It's really difficult. Amazon especially allow a huge quantity of copycats or very near cats, so to speak, on, and protection is really, really difficult. Design registrations are one of the best form, but you have to pay for most intellectual property before you launch the product. So you have to pay a lot of money before you start, and you never quite know how successful the product is going to be. So actually on the makeup brush cleaner, we weren't sure about it, so we didn't have as much protection as we, in hindsight, would have loved to have had. But there are ways and means. There are good agencies that will help you remove things from Amazon, and Amazon do have a process. We have had to work with lawyers in the UK to have retailers remove product from shelf. We've been quite successful with that. But in America, we have not. And the copycats have basically completely herded us out of that market, certainly on Amazon. And we find now actually America is just too competitive for us. So our focus is the UK and on Europe. And we're doing very, very well in Europe, actually. We're really expanding in Europe. We've worked out how to deal post-Brexit, and we're expanding nicely.
And is it still the invention side that really you love the most?
I love making things. I love making things happen. I love trying to make a difference. I do get a real buzz from showing someone something and them going, "Oh wow, that's cool." And that's what I strive to try and do. And then I love trying to help manage this team and get involved. I'm quite hands-on in certain areas, occasionally a bit too hands-on. So I'm learning to be a better boss, CEO. And yeah, the inventing side is what I love the most.
Is there any particular product you're sort of close to launching that you can talk about at the moment? A new product?
Yes, certainly. So, red light skincare therapy is an enormously interesting area. Every 6 months, there's more research out proving the benefits of red or blue or pink colours. We have a couple of products in that area at the moment, and they're doing very, very well. And we've got some more coming for next year. But the masks with the red light, and you see some photos on Instagram. They do look a little bit ghastly at the moment. They're a bit shocking at first, but red light therapy or phototherapy is an area that we're developing on a lot. And one of my biggest passions is trying to make these things accessible, because currently they are £300, £400, £500, £600, and we want to be bringing out one at £99, make it accessible, make it easy to use at home, so everyone can have the benefits. I think especially for teenagers who are very concerned about their skin, it's a really big deal for them at school and in college. So I'm really excited about that for June.
Finally, Tom, I think everyone who's enters the Apprentice or becomes part of the Apprentice process is allowed their little bit of hyperbole at the beginning. I think your particular pitch was, I want to be bigger than Dyson. Is that right? Have I remembered that right? Is that still on the to-do list, or? Oh
my gosh, it's still very much on the to-do list, on the dream list. My goodness, what a company he and his family and his team have created, and I would dream to be in that category. I must admit, personally, I am less in favour of the kind of luxury. I do think his products are a bit overpriced. He can justify that, I suppose. I think that they're a little bit unaffordable for many. But I would love to be in the same kind of category. I've got 20 years, I think. I'm about 20 years younger than him. So maybe, but I suspect that he is already well beyond my league. But thank you for putting me in the same sentence. That's very kind.
That was Tom Pellereau speaking to the Evening Standard's business editor, Jonathan Prynne. How to Be a CEO will be back in 2 weeks. We'll see you then.